split the silence of the night, making his hair rise up on end. With a flash, the security spotlight lit, flooding the area beyond where he got a glimpse of the bonnet of a car parked into the hedges on the road. It had been the call of a woman, most likely coming from the vehicle. Before he had a chance to move, he heard another scream, this time somewhat muffled. Without hesitating, the watchman pressed firmly on the trigger and fired up into the air. With the explosion, a flock of egrets perching along the barbed wire fence soared into the sky. He jumped back and leaned on the wall. His heart was pounding heavily against his temple like the beat of 1,000 drums. Everything had grown still, so much so that not even a leaf rustled. The intermittent ringing of his watch alerted him to the hour. It was 12 midnight. Not far from where he stood, he heard the soft ignition of an engine. The car zoomed away towards the junction in the direction of the highway and was lost. We have a change of scene now. The girl stood motionless, as still as the finely cut white stone crosses on the gravesite at the foot of the hill at El Chial. Ruiz glanced at her discreetly from the rear view mirror of his worn-down Toyota Camry cab. Showered by the light of the moon, she did not look as ghastly as when she had waved her scarf at him by the entrance to Clarissa Falls, across the lofty house at El Chial. In fact, it was her first attempt to get a close look at her. She was dark-skinned and quite attractive, perhaps as charming as Clarissa, the black mistress of one of the early settlers who claimed the land along the river in her name. The charm of Clarissa had become the prototype of beauty among the folk in the area, who claimed her skin was as tender as the petals of sacknite, showered with the morning dew, and her eyes as deep as the emerald waters of the Mopan. She is gorgeous, he thought, taking another glimpse of the girl. His tiredness seemed to have dissipated ever since she exchanged words with him a few seconds after sliding into the back seat, requesting a ride down the road at the entrance to Nabetunich. Her accent was unusual, most likely that of an alien, as Central American migrants were referred to in the area. The thought had crossed his mind immediately. Most likely she was illegally in the country, like most of the unusual faces that were seen roaming about in the fecha bars and nightclubs in town. As if reading his mind, she added that she was native from Honduras. A cloud of nostalgia had bathed her deep-toned complexion as she started reminiscing on her childhood days in a hamlet which she kept referring to as her beloved Concepcion. The 30-year-old bachelor had readily dismissed his feelings on the identity of the passenger as he listened attentively to the soft voice of the young woman who most likely was not over 20. She kept speaking of the abject poverty which had moved her to desert her daughter in search of a dream. She is for real, Ruiz had told himself. Smiling inwardly, he released the accelerator as if wanting to prolong the ride. Spirits do not talk like this girl, he thought, and he was surely not listening to the apparition of the road, which was the talk among cab drivers. He had felt the gentle, sweet fragrance again which had pervaded the air when she got into the car. It was the smell of night blossoms, probably being pollinated by bats and other nocturnal creatures. The month of April was folding in, and the sagnite, the Mayflowers, would mostly likely be in bloom. When they ran out of gossip in lazy, hot afternoons, the drivers of the taxi association who hung around the bus terminal began entertaining themselves with stories of ghosts and apparitions that were seen along the solitary highway past El Chial in the dark nights when people ventured to drive alone. The story of Salomon was popular among the townfolk. While driving on